Myths aren't just old stories. They're kind of like blueprints for understanding the world. And today, we're diving into a really powerful legend from China's northern Song dynasty. It's about a young girl named Lin Moniang who would grow up to become the revered sea goddess, Mazu. It's an incredible story about a quiet girl, a deadly storm, and a miracle that is just, well, you'll see. So let me ask you this. Does that sound possible? Could a handful of dry grass, something you wouldn't even look at twice, actually save a ship from a storm? I mean, it sounds crazy, right? But this very question is right at the heart of one of Mazu's most famous tales. Let's get into how this simple, almost absurd act became a legendary rescue mission. Okay, so our story kicks off in a coastal village called Putian in Fujian province. And this is where we meet our hero, long before she was ever known as a goddess. Now, Lin Monyong wasn't your typical kid. She was quiet, and she preferred to just sit and watch the sky and the sea for hours. And the local fishermen, well, they learned to trust her instincts completely. If Monyong even just frowned at the clouds, they knew it was time to get their boat secured. And fast. But her real gift, her true power, went so much deeper than just forecasting the weather. See, it wasn't just about reading clouds. It was this deep emotional connection she had. The source material calls it kokonni, or empathy. She didn't just see a storm coming, she could literally feel the fear of the sailors out on the water, even if they were miles and miles away. It's this quiet strength, right? A power that's rooted not in force, but in pure feeling. This quote, wow, it just perfectly captures her whole perspective. When she looked out at the ocean, she wasn't just seeing water. She was hearing the collective worry, the pleas of every sailor and fisherman out there. And this really sets the stage for the crisis that's about to hit. All right, so now the story shifts. We're moving from the calm shore to the open and very, very dangerous sea, where a merchant ship finds itself in a terrifying situation. I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're on a ship, and this fog appears out of nowhere. It's so unnaturally thick, it's described as a wall. You can't see the stars to navigate. You can't even see the front of your own ship. The captain, an old veteran sailor named Lao Zhang, had never seen anything like it in his life. And to make everything 1,000 times worse, their rudder is busted, and they're just drifting helplessly toward a bunch of hidden, deadly reefs. This right here, this quote just says it all. The crew has given up. They are completely lost, trapped in what feels like a dark, sealed box, just waiting for that inevitable, horrible crash. All hope is gone. But back on the shores, someone can hear their desperate cries for help. And this, my friends, is where the story takes a truly miraculous turn. So, Monyang's response is what changes everything. She feels their terror. She knows a simple bonfire on the beach isn't going to cut through the supernatural fog. So what does she do? She grabs a handful of worthless, dry grass, and with this quiet focus, she just tosses it into the waves. And in an instant, the impossible happens. That light, flimsy grass expands and hardens, transforming into these enormous, solid logs. And get this, these weren't just ordinary logs. Each one started to give off this steady orange-red glow. They arranged themselves into two perfect lines, creating a brightly lit pathway, stretching from the shore, way out into the dark sea. It was like an ancient, divine runway, just appearing in the middle of a storm. Absolutely incredible. Okay, so now let's jump back to the ship and see what this unbelievable sight looked like from their perspective. Just as Captain Lao Zhang has pretty much accepted his fate, he sees it. 2 rows of glowing lights slicing right through the fog. He doesn't even hesitate. He knows this has to be divine intervention, and he rallies his crew. Suddenly, there's a path. Suddenly, there's hope. And if that wasn't amazing enough, here's another layer to the miracle. The glowing logs didn't just show them the way. As the ship sailed right between them, the violent, chaotic waves immediately became calm and gentle. So the path not only showed them where to go, but it also pacified the sea itself, making sure they sailed safely past all those hidden dangers. So the rescue is a success, but the story isn't over, not by a long shot. You could argue that the most profound part of this whole legend happens after the ship is safe. So as the ship pulls safely into Putian Harbor at dawn, the totally exhausted sailors turn back to look at the miraculous wooden highway that saved their lives. But as the first rays of sunlight hit the water, they watch in absolute disbelief as those massive, solid logs just dissolve, becoming nothing more than simple, yellow straw floating by the shore.
As the sailors are just standing there, completely baffled, Mo Niang walks by, pretending she's just out gathering herbs, and she offers them this simple yet incredibly profound explanation. The power, she's saying, wasn't in the grass itself. It was in the intention and the powerful compassion behind the act.
So, what does this whole story, this legend of turning grass into wood, really teach us? Well, the tale is basically an allegory with a few core messages that are just as relevant today as they were 1,000 years ago. First, it's about how the gentle can overcome the strong. Monyang's compassion, this soft-hearted power, transforms something as weak as grass into a force that can conquer a deadly storm. Second, it's a beacon of hope. Think about it. In an age without GPS or modern tech, this story gave people a sense of security, a belief that there's a guiding light for you even in the darkest times. And finally, it's all about selfless protection. Monyang saves the entire crew and then just walks away, not looking for any thanks or glory. Her act was pure, simple guardianship. And, that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The legend teaches that something we might see as small or insignificant, a kind word, a little act of help, our own empathy, can be transformed by a firm enough intention into a guiding light for someone else who's lost in their own storm. It's a really powerful idea to reflect on in our own lives.